Jamal Reed arrived at the Merrington Museum before sunrise, clutching his coffee and a borrowed toolkit. By 7 a.m., he and the installation crew were adding final touches to Broken Voices in Gallery C, an audacious centerpiece of jagged mirror shards, layered protest posters, and hidden speakers, whispering real testimonies of injustice. He'd envisioned patrons stepping in, meeting their own reflections, fractured alongside the stories that demanded to be heard. At 9 a.m., the museum doors swung open for the private VIP preview. Curator Lydia Merrington greeted the first guests with practiced grace as they drifted through the minimalist atrium. Jamal watched from the mezzanine railing, excitement propelling his pulse, until he saw their feet veer sharply away from Gallery C. Patrons in cashmere and silk circled the mirrored panels without stopping, their glances flicking past the suspended audio devices. One elderly couple crossed their arms and murmured, "A bit too political, don't you think?" A young social media influencer snapped a single photograph, then moved on, lips pursed in feigned appreciation. Servers glided by with trays of champagne, but no one raised a glass to Broken Voices. By 11 a.m., the gallery stood empty. No whispered debates, no hushed gasps, no visitors confronting the mirror's shards. Jamal sat on the low bench before his work, the distorted reflections of empty sneakers and polished floors mocking his intent. He scrolled through the guestbook on his phone and saw no signatures under his installation's title, only polite praise for the impressionist wing downstairs. When Lydia appeared beside him, her smile was tight. "They're not ready for this," she said, voice low. "Let's give them time to warm up." Jamal shook his head. "They're not warming up," he replied quietly. "They're walking away." As the museum's lunchtime crowd flooded the grand halls, Jamal pressed record on his phone's camera. He framed the empty gallery, capturing the silent mirrors and the untouched posters. Then he walked out, resolve hardening in his chest. If the elite of Merrington wouldn't confront broken voices, he would make those voices impossible to ignore. And so, with one last look at the Shunned installation, Jamal stepped into the bright afternoon, ready to ignite the spark that would force the museum and every patron to own the truths they refused to face. That evening, Jamal Reed returned to the empty museum under cover of dusk. He slipped inside through the staff entrance, granted reluctantly by a sympathetic technician, carrying 5 massive crates of his own art supplies. In the dead silence of Gallery C, he worked by headlamp, rigging additional mirror panels, mounting battery-powered projectors, and wiring high-fidelity speakers into the ventilation ducts. By midnight, Broken Voices had evolved into a living cityscape. Every mirrored shard now flickered with projected text, lines from the recorded testimonies, while the speakers boomed Agent Orange-style soundscapes of protest chants and whispered confessions. Jamal stepped back and activated his phone's 5G hotspot, live streaming the installation's secret transformation to thousands of followers. At 2 a.m., he placed a final touch, a QR code stenciled on the low bench, linking to a video of his time-lapse build and a call to action: listen, share, demand change. He snapped a photo and sent it to Dean King, the TV producer, with one word: tonight. By dawn, social media exploded. Early morning commuters caught glimpses of mirrored walls glowing through the museum windows. Tourists on adjacent steps filmed the haunting projections playing behind the empty glass. Broken Voices began trending. Influencers and news crews flooded the plaza. Merrington Museum defaced or elevated. Artist transforms empty gallery into viral justice statement. Inside, security and curators stood stunned before the commandeered exhibit. Jamal's hack had broken the museum's curated silence, filling every corner of Gallery C with voices no one could ignore. As the morning's first patrons entered, they confronted fractured reflections of themselves beneath Jamal's urgent words, their footsteps faltering before the mirrored truth. Upstairs, Lydia Merrington's email pinged with news alerts and demands for comment. She abandoned her morning coffee and sprinted to Gallery C, where white suits and silks now stood transfixed, eyes tracing every shard and listening to every recorded voice. Jamal, watching through the museum's outer plaza, tapped his watch. 9:15 a.m., the exact moment the original exhibit was supposed to open. And as the first astonished patron finally stepped through the doors, heart racing, phone raised, Jamal knew his guerrilla takeover had succeeded. No one would ever walk past Broken Voices again. By mid-morning, the Merrington Museum's email servers were flooded. Supporters, scholars, outraged citizens, and even local politicians demanded answers. Outside, a small crowd of protesters, many carrying signs reading, "Broken Voices must be heard," gathered beneath the grand marble columns. News vans lined the curb, their satellite dishes aimed skyward, while influential art bloggers live tweeted every development to thousands of followers. Inside Gallery C, curator Lydia Merrington stood before her staff, panic and resolve warring on her face. The hacked installation glowed behind her, mirror shards flickering with projected testimonies, voices rising and falling in a relentless chorus. Museum guards flanked the doorway, unsure whether to shut the exhibit down or simply stand back in awe. Lydia cleared her throat. "Effective immediately," she announced, voice trembling with the weight of public scrutiny. "We are embracing Broken Voices as the centerpiece of our reopening. We will issue a formal apology to Jamal Reed, invite him to curate his own retrospective, and host a town hall forum on art and social justice." Her declaration prompted a ripple of relief and applause from the assembled staff. Within minutes, PR teams drafted a statement. The Merrington Museum acknowledges that Broken Voices transcends mere art. It is an urgent dialogue we can no longer sidestep. We apologize to Mr. Reed for our initial reticence and invite him to lead our forthcoming Social Conscience series, ensuring these voices resonate through every gallery. At 11 a.m., Lydia joined Jamal Reed on the museum steps for a hastily organized press conference. The crowd surged forward as cameras clicked. Lydia began. "Mr. Reed, on behalf of the Merrington Museum, I offer my deepest apologies. Your work challenges us, and today we choose to listen." She extended a hand. Jamal stepped into the sunlight, microphone in hand, and surveyed the sea of reporters and protesters. He nodded once, then raised his voice. "Art's power lies in its ability to disrupt complacency. Thank you for opening these doors, and more importantly, your minds." Over the next hour, the museum's director unveiled concrete commitments: a permanent Broken Voices gallery, an annual artist residency for social justice practitioners, and a free public lecture series co-hosted with local advocacy groups. Each pledge was met with cheers, the crowd's energy shifting from protest to celebration. Back in Gallery C, Jamal guided the museum's technical team as they restored his original audio tracks and calibrated the projection's timing. Museum educators hovered nearby, organizing volunteer docents to lead guided tours through the installation's layers of mirror and memory. As he affixed the final QR code plaque, now officially sanctioned, Jamal allowed himself a satisfied smile. By closing time, Broken Voices was not just reinstated, it had become the museum's defining moment of reckoning. In the weeks to come, attendance soared. Scholars penned essays, and the installation sparked citywide conversations about art, race, and responsibility. And at the heart of it all stood Jamal Reed, whose viral intervention had turned silenced corridors into a chamber of truths no one could ever again ignore. 2 weeks after the press conference, the Merrington Museum's Grand Hall bristled with anticipation. Rows of folding chairs filled the space. Community activists, art patrons, students, and local politicians packed shoulder to shoulder beneath the soaring skylights. A banner above the stage read, "Social Conscience Series, Art, Justice, and Community." The program Jamal Reed was invited to curate. Jamal stepped onto the stage beside curator Lydia Merrington and City Council member Aisha Thompson. He opened the town hall with a firm welcome. "Thank you for being here. Broken Voices did more than reflect our fractured society. It asked us to come together, to listen, and to act. Tonight, we begin that work." The first panel featured 3 speakers: a formerly incarcerated poet whose lines echoed in Jamal's installation, a civil rights lawyer who used art in courtroom arguments, and a museum educator who had developed empathy-driven tours. Each shared concrete ways art could fuel social change, documenting injustice, fostering dialogue, and inspiring policy reform. Next, Lydia unveiled the museum's Equity Grant, a $100,000 yearly fund for local artists of color to create public installations in schools, parks, and transit hubs. Jamal oversaw its first round of applications: murals canvassing neighborhood underpasses, dance film projects amplifying youth voices, and community-led photo exhibits chronicling gentrification's human cost. At the evening's midpoint, Councilmember Thompson announced that the city would partner with the museum to repurpose vacant lot walls into rotating voice walls, outdoor mirror-paneled installations where residents could post their own stories. "Art belongs to the people," she declared, "and we will bring it into our streets." Applause rippled through the hall. In the final segment, Jamal facilitated small group workshops. Attendees clustered around tables, sketching ideas for community exhibits, drafting letters to local officials, and drafting volunteer rosters for voice wall maintenance. Jamal walked among them, offering feedback. "Consider how your installation will engage passers-by," he advised one group, "or how sound and reflection can broaden impact." As the 3-hour event drew to a close, Lydia invited everyone back to Gallery C, now buzzing with visitors at all hours. Under the flickering mirror shards, families, students, and retirees gathered, conversing in hushed, earnest tones about what they'd learned. Museum docents led impromptu tours, connecting stories from the town hall to the voices embedded in the installation's audio. Outside, the plaza's voice wall prototype, 2 mirrored panels draped in post-its, teemed with messages. "My story matters. I demand justice. Art is not optional." Jamal lingered by the wall, reading each note, a testament to the exhibit's ripple effect. By nightfall, the Merrington Museum had not only restored broken voices, it had launched a citywide movement where art, activism, and policy intersected. From apology to action, the institution and its community embarked on a shared journey to shatter complacency, amplify silenced stories, and build a more just, creative, and inclusive public square. 6 weeks after the Social Conscience series launch, Jamal Reed stood beneath a cloudless sky in the heart of the Southside District, surrounded by half a dozen shimmering voice walls. Outdoor mirror installations draped in translucent protest posters and crowned with speakers playing the same firsthand testimonies from broken voices. A crowd of more than 500 residents, students, and local officials milled around, cameras rolling, as Jamal prepared to unveil the first Equity Grant-funded public art project. At 10 a.m., Jamal took the makeshift stage, a painted wooden crate, beside Mayor Ramirez and curator Lydia Merrington. He cleared his throat. "When my work was hidden behind these museum doors, its power lay dormant. Today, it moves into the streets, where every passerby becomes part of the conversation. These walls belong to you." With that, he cut a ribbon draped across the central panel. Immediately, the mirrored surfaces burst to life. Projection-mapped portraits of neighborhood elders faded into images of schoolchildren, reciting pledge fragments about justice, while the speakers cycled through recorded voices demanding housing equity, police reform, and educational opportunity. A low hum of wonder rippled through the audience. Next, the 4 Equity Grant recipients, artists chosen in blind juried selection, stepped forward to describe their installations. Maya Thompson, a high school senior, had created a series of large-format photographs printed on semi-transparent vinyl, each depicting families and moments of resilience. Her images now fluttered from the annexed bus shelter. Carlos Diaz, a poet and muralist, unveiled his block-long mural on the side of the local community center, rendered in vibrant acrylics layered with QR code sound tags, linking to his verse about identity and belonging. Anita and Priya, a sculptor duo, activated a vacant storefront with their kinetic Hope Loom, a steel framework where neighborhood kids wove colored ribbons bearing their dreams for the city. Jamal's own project, the Voice Walls, would rotate testimonies every month, ensuring fresh stories shattered the glass facade of apathy. As each artist spoke, families and passersby approached to touch the materials, feeling the vinyl's texture, running fingers along sculpted steel, listening to whispered words echoing across the plaza. Reporters from the City Chronicle and Artline TV broadcast live. Marrington Museum's outreach transforms abandoned lots into stages for justice. By noon, the plaza teemed with interactive workshops. Lydia Marrington led museum educators in a pop-up gallery inside the reopened community library, guiding visitors through the evolution of broken voices from private exhibit to public phenomenon. Local high school teachers conducted mirror writing sessions, inviting youth to inscribe personal narratives onto portable mirrored panels, which volunteers then integrated into the voice walls. Amid the buzz, Jamal wandered the perimeter, watching toddlers dance under Carlos's mural, elders exchange memories at Maya's photographs, and teens snap selfies by the loom. He smiled at a young artist sketching the scene in watercolor, reminded that art's power multiplies when it's shared. That afternoon, at City Hall's Town Square press conference, Mayor Ramirez announced a 3-year, $2 million allocation for Creative Justice, a coalition of the museum, the Arts Council, and community groups to develop inclusive public art and educational programs. She concluded, Jamal Reed's vision showed us that confronting our fractured past can unite us in building a more equitable future. This city commits to ensuring those voices never go silent again. As the sun dipped, Jamal returned to the Southside Plaza alone. The voice walls glowed in the gathering dusk, each panel alive with shifting testimonies. He placed a single hand on the mirrored surface, feeling both his own reflection and the countless faces now intertwined by their shared stories. In that moment, he knew Broken Voices had transcended a single gallery's neglect. It had become the heartbeat of an entire city, its echoes driving policy, forging community, and proving that art, once unleashed, can crack open even the most fortified institutions. By autumn, the voice walls and equity grant installations had become fixtures of Marrington's cultural landscape, and Jamal Reed found himself steering a full-scale City Arts and Justice Council, co-chaired by the museum and the mayor's office. Their mandate: channel the energy of Broken Voices into lasting policy and public engagement. In the council's first official meeting, Jamal sat at a long conference table flanked by Lydia Marrington, Councilmember Aisha Thompson, local educators, and nonprofit leaders. The agenda included 3 critical initiatives: curriculum integration, partner public schools with the museum to incorporate Broken Voices content into history and art classes. Student-created mirror installations would rotate through campuses each semester, ensuring youth engagement. Annual Art of Justice Festival, a week-long citywide event featuring pop-up exhibitions, street performances, panel discussions, and community art workshops, culminating in a massive projection of Broken Voices testimonies onto the museum facade. Public Art Preservation Fund, a dedicated endowment sourced from city arts budgets and private donations to maintain and expand all social justice installations, ensuring they remain free and accessible in perpetuity. As the council voted unanimously, Jamal felt the shift from reactive protest to structured advocacy. Each policy anchored the raw power of his guerrilla installation in institutional support. 2 weeks later, Jamal returned to Marrington High School, where students had been drafting their own mirror and voice projects. In a packed auditorium, he unveiled the Citywide Youth Voices Tour, a traveling exhibit of student projects to be displayed in libraries, parks, and transit stations. Among the crowd, freshmen and seniors alike beamed as their mirrored panels flickered with their own recorded stories of resilience, prejudice, and hope. Meanwhile, Lydia Marrington spearheaded the museum's first artist-in-residence for social impact, selecting Jamal to mentor emerging creators. In the museum's sunlit studios, Jamal coached 4 fellows, poets, sculptors, filmmakers, guiding them to marry aesthetic rigor with civic purpose. Their proposals ranged from augmented reality walking tours, highlighting redlined neighborhoods, to community-driven tapestry projects, memorializing local civil rights milestones. On the final day of the inaugural Art of Justice Festival, a massive crowd gathered at dusk in the museum plaza. As twilight deepened, technicians cued the projection. Giant mirror shards and layered testimonies flickered across the museum's front, while live performances, spoken word, drumming circles, dance vignettes, animated the steps below. Jamal stepped to the mic. "This is our city speaking. Our voices, once fractured and ignored, now echo in every street and every heart. Let us carry this spirit forward through art, through policy, through every act of justice." Cheers cascaded into the night as the crowd pressed close, phones recording the historic spectacle. In that electric moment, Jamal Reed realized his installation had ignited not just a museum's conscience, but an entire city's, proving that when art dares to break silence, its echoes can reshape laws, curricula, and communities alike. 5 years after Jamal Reed's guerrilla takeover of Gallery C, Broken Voices has become an enduring landmark. Its mirror-fragmented panels and resonant testimonies replicated in cities nationwide. On the anniversary of the original reopening, Jamal stood beneath Merrington Museum's grand portico, now inscribed with a new plaque. "For those whose voices were once silenced, may these mirrors always reflect our shared truths." A crowd of thousands, students, activists, politicians, museum members, and curious tourists, gathered in the plaza. The City Arts and Justice Council had orchestrated a citywide reflection march, where participants carried handheld mirrored panels, inscribed with personal stories, converging on the museum to form a vast mosaic of lived experience. At 6 p.m., Jamal mounted the stage beside Mayor Ramirez and curator Lydia Merrington, who now co-directs the museum's social conscience program. He took the mic, voice steady. "Art's power lies in its capacity to shatter the illusions we live by and reveal the realities we too often ignore. Tonight we stand together, reflections of each other, committing to a future where every voice, every story, finds its place in our shared history." As dusk fell, the museum's facade lit up with a dynamic projection of broken voices, its mirror shimmers and spoken testimonies amplifying across the city square. The handheld panels lifted by marchers joined the display, creating a living tapestry of light and sound. Across town, Merrington High School students unveiled their permanent student voice gallery, a wing inspired by Jamal's work, where each year's cohort installs new mirror and audio pieces responding to contemporary issues: climate justice, digital privacy, mental health stigma, ensuring the museum's mission evolves with the times. In the museum's boardroom, Lydia pointed to a map dotted with grant-funded installations sprouting in public parks, libraries, and transit hubs, each a branch of the original Broken Voices tree. "Your vision," she told Jamal, "has spread roots deeper than any of us imagined." As fireworks burst above the plaza, Jamal watched families and strangers alike reflect themselves in the mirrored panels, their faces alight with recognition. A young girl tugged at his sleeve, pointing to her reflection among the crowd. "That's me," she whispered. Jamal knelt, smiling. Yes, it always was. Under the murmur of applause and the glow of 1,000 mirrored fragments, Merrington Museum and its city celebrated not an end, but a continual beginning, proof that when art breaks barriers, its echoes resonate forever in the hearts and histories of all who dare to look.